Hi, I'm Matt Schul, the youth pastor at First Presbyterian Church in Upland. Welcome to our second bonus lesson in our series, This is the Way. Conspiracy theories are everywhere. September 11th, alien government control,
the Illuminati,
coronavirus.
They're everywhere. Today we're going to talk about some very old conspiracy theories about Jesus. Like I said last week, if Jesus didn't really rise from the dead, then Christianity is worthless. This Bible is just fiction. None of this is true. But if Jesus did actually rise from the dead, then it is the most important event in human history. That's essentially what Josh McDowell said in his book, More Than a Carpenter. I came to the conclusion that the resurrection of Jesus Christ is either one of the most wicked, vicious, heartless hoaxes ever foisted on people, or it is the most important fact in history. So what really happened to Jesus on the cross? Did he actually die there? Did he actually rise from the dead? The Quran says Jesus didn't die on the cross. In fact, a certain sect of Muslims, the Ahmadiyya Muslims, say that Jesus actually fled to India, where he died of old age, and they have his tomb there. In 1929, D.H. Lawrence said that Jesus fled to Egypt and fell in love with the priestess Isis. In 1982, a book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, the author contends that Pilate was bribed to allow Jesus to be taken off the cross before he was dead. But even the author claims that he has no evidence to support this claim. Let's take a look at some background work before we get into some of the more popular conspiracy theories. Let's entertain the idea that Jesus didn't actually die when he went onto the cross. We talked at length about Jesus being beaten several episodes ago. His back was shredded to pieces by a whip with pieces of metal and ceramic and, digging into his back and tearing it up. The lacerations would have gone further than just the regular skin on his back. It would have torn into the underlying skeletal muscle. And at the very least, he would have been in intense pain for a very, very long time. And he probably would have experienced hypovolemic shock due to the loss of blood and fluid. After his death, he was wrapped in a linen cloth, and they added 75 pounds of aromatic spices to cover up the smells and to also help preserve the body. After that, a 2-ton stone was rolled into place with some type of lever, and it was sealed with a seal of Rome. And if the stone was moved, that seal would have been broken, and everyone would have known it had been tampered with. And then it was guarded with strictly disciplined Roman guard. During the time of Nero, when he was emperor of Rome, he regularly burned guards alive if they ever fell asleep or didn't do their job as guards. So they took it pretty seriously. Now that we've done some of the background work, let's take a look at some of these more popular conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theory number 1. The wrong tomb. British scholar Kearsop Lake, his theory states that the women who were the first ones to arrive and witness Jesus' resurrection simply went to the wrong tomb. Now, that's possible. I mean, the stereotype is that women don't have a good sense of direction and they get lost constantly. That's definitely not how it is in my house. I get lost all the time. I've always gotten lost. My wife always knows the direction she's going. This one time when we had Disney passes, I took the kids while Dana was at work, and we were at Disneyland all day, and she met us there after work. When we were on our way home, Dana went to her car, and we headed up to our floor, Donald, and went to our car. But we couldn't find it. We searched up and down the road, and in the meantime, Dana drove all the way home. She was home for a few minutes, thought we should have been right behind her. She ended up calling me, and we had been lost for 45 minutes trying to find my car. The kids were younger, and they were crying.
We're never gonna find our car.
And I'm like, it's okay, here, let's just pray. We're gonna ask God to help us find the car. We know it's on this floor. Eventually, we're gonna find it. And we did, and we made it home. So here's the problem with that theory. The men then ran to the tomb, and it says they outran the women, so they would have had to go to the wrong tomb also. And then the women would have had to go a second time to the wrong tomb. It's just not likely. But I think an even bigger problem is if they went around telling people, Jesus is alive. They went to the wrong tomb. Nobody was there. It was empty. And they're telling everybody, Jesus rose from the dead. The guards were there the whole time at the real tomb.
Nuh-uh, come. Check right here. We still got it sealed. We're still right here.
They would have been able to show everybody how false this lie was. So given that evidence, I think the wrong tomb theory
is busted.
Conspiracy theory number 2, the hallucination theory. In 1 Corinthians 15, Paul says that Jesus appeared after his death for 40 days, even to a crowd of more than 500 people at once. And Paul writes that this fact can be confirmed by witnesses who were still alive that day. Paul's essentially saying, look, if you don't believe me, go ask a lot of the people. They're still around. You can check and see if this is actually true. So conspiracy theory number 2 says Jesus never actually rose from the dead, but his followers just hallucinated the whole thing. They wanted to believe it. They wanted Jesus to come back. They wanted him to be the hero and the Messiah that he claimed to be. Now, while hallucinations are real, they can happen under extreme fatigue or exhaustion. You know, like if you're in a desert and you don't have any water, you're under tremendous stress and haven't been sleeping, or even under the influence of mind-altering drug use. That's how you get hallucinations. Maybe they were hungry. Hey, Mary, can you go pick out some mushrooms for our stew?
Like, oh, these seem good.
And they mixed them all up in the stew, and they were all just like tripping in some
Wow, psychedelic haze, right? Whoa, Jesus.
It could be like a real-life Travis Scott Fortnite concert. That was actually a pretty cool concert. I don't even like Fortnite, but man, that was pretty cool. The problem with this theory is that hallucinations can't be controlled, and they're never replicated in the same fashion from person to person. So you're not gonna have the same hallucination that I am. In order for this to line up with what it says in here, it would have had to not only affect all of the disciples, but the women who were there and 500 other people for 40 days. No way.
No way.
Hallucination theory.
Busted.
Conspiracy theory number 3, the stolen body. Maybe the disciples broke in and stole Jesus' body, Mission Impossible style. Dun, 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 dun. But this doesn't line up with how the disciples had been acting. The depression and the cowardice that they had displayed when Jesus was on trial and afterward, it seems inconsistent with the amount of courage and bravery it would have taken to steal Jesus' body. These are the same guys who denied even knowing Jesus a couple nights before, and the guys who are trembling and hiding in the upper room after Jesus rises from the dead. It's not consistent. It's also contradictory to the ethical lives they lived. Now, they weren't perfect, but they lived with very high ethical, moral standards. And this is just not lining up. Plus, they would have had to get by Roman guards either while they're awake, absolutely no chance, or while the guards were sleeping. But as I said before, knowing the punishments that came for guards who fell asleep on the job, especially in such a high-profile case as this one, there's no way this is gonna happen. So these disciples who have tucked their tail between their legs and have been hiding, now all of a sudden have all this bravery to take on Roman guards, to move a 2-ton stone, and to rescue Jesus from there. We don't see this kind of boldness from them until Acts chapter 2, when the Holy Spirit comes down on them.
Try again.
Stolen body theory.
Busted.
Conspiracy theories numbers 4 and 5. The secret sponge and swoon theories. The sponge of vinegar that was given to Jesus in John 19, some people say actually had a drug that made Jesus seem like he died, but when he went to the cool, damp air of the cave, it revived him and then he walked out. This is kind of a popular idea in TV shows or in movies, spies or action stars, where they take some sort of magical pill or drug, makes them seem dead, but then they suddenly spring back to life when they need it and they can escape. The swoon theory is very similar to the secret sponge. The swoon theory is very similar to the secret sponge theory. 19th century German rationalist Carl Venturini claimed that Jesus merely fainted or swooned from the exhaustion and loss of blood. But when he came to, he left the tomb and everyone just thought he was raised from the dead. Look, a man in that weakened condition would have to move a 2-ton stone on his own and then take out 2 Roman soldiers and then show himself to his disciples in all of his frailty. That is not the image that sparks a revolution. This is not the image that changed cowards into bold preachers and eventually martyrs who would die for this belief. It would have only weakened the impression that Jesus had made on them during his life and through his death. It's kind of like our favorite athletes at the end of their careers, like Michael Jordan on the Wizards. Oh, Or Shaq on the Celtics. Or Chuck Liddell against Tito Ortiz in the third fight. Oh, it was just embarrassing. I love you, Iceman. I wish you still had it. Or even watching Albert Pujols play right now. I miss you, baseball. It's sad to watch these guys with their legacies being tarnished because they don't have the same skills. They show up in this weak and frail condition. Sometimes those things tarnish the legacy of the great things they did before. So Jesus showing back up weak and beaten and falling apart, that's not what inspires a revolution. The only thing that changes these men is seeing their master Jesus in full power and glory, actually raising from the dead. Sponge and swoon theories.
Busted.
Many people would rather believe anything than to believe that Jesus actually rose from the dead, because that truth changes everything. Jesus was not a great teacher who died 2,000 years ago. He is alive and has triumphed over death. And if we put our trust in him, we will share in that same triumph. That's worth celebrating. Like, subscribe, and comment. I hope we get to see each other soon.